Welcome to Auburn Community Television on Wave Channel 20 and this episode of Meet the Artist. As you know, Meet the Artist is supported by the North Auburn Artist to introduce artists in our local community. Today I'm thrilled because our guest artist is a member of the North Auburn Artist. Sonja Hamilton does fabulous watercolor paintings, and she has invited us to her studio so that you can see how she creates her beautiful artwork, and also will give you a taste of what you can see when you come on the North Auburn Artist Studio Tour, which is annually held on the Mother's Day weekend. So let's go in and see Sonja. Hi, Sonja.
LouCinda, hello. It's so nice to see you this morning.
Well, I'm so glad you invited us to your studio.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Have we interrupted?
No, watch this. Because I can't stop right now. I'm doing a reflection, and this, you have to catch it at the right time to get the water movement in before everything dries. So you're watching a reflection happening right before your eyes.
This is absolutely amazing. I just am always marveling about how you're able to do this, and so quickly.
Well, it has to be fast, this particular thing, but I paint quickly too because I paint a lot and I've had a lot of experience, and it seems to work better if I go quickly. So I'm going to do another little swath of reflection and moving water right here. Watercolor is just, I think it's delicious.
I love it because you've already got the reflection of the trees, it looks like, in the water.
And here, this is going to be the mountain that's going to be reflected up on top. So it all works. So now I can stop and look at you and say hello and good morning and welcome.
Thank you. So this is then all we have to do at this point, and then you can let it dry out and you can start back on it later?
Yeah, sure. I can, sure.
Okay.
I can paint now or and continue or not, whatever.
Well, part of the reason that we're here
is
because we are getting ready for the North Auburn Artist Studio Tour.
Yes, we are.
And you are participating in that.
Yes, I am.
And you are a member of the North Auburn Artists and have been for quite a while.
Yes, I have been. We've been a group from, I guess it's now about 21 years, 22 years. I came on board in 2004. I was in a group up in North Auburn exhibiting in 2003. But the name changed, and we are now the North Auburn Artists.
And have you always had a tour over the Mother's Day weekend?
Yes, and it's a wonderful time because we get generations coming. We have 2 and 3 generations coming because mom wants to go someplace or they want to take mom someplace special. So to come into a private studio to see where the artist works and just has fun, it's kind of like intruding in a good way. So the artists love it, the patrons love it, and there's wonderful stuff to see in every studio they go to.
And so today what we're doing is giving you a sneak preview of what a studio tour is going to be, with Sonja's studio being the first one that we are visiting. And we are going to do a little bit of movement around her studio so you can actually see what she has on display here. And we're going to talk a little bit about things that you can see when you're here. Are you going to be doing any type of demonstration while you're here?
Well, yes and no. I would like to. I'll have a painting here on my desk ready to go, depending on how many people come. If I'm meeting and greeting, hello and how are you and come on and welcome and all, I may not be able to paint as much as I would like to.
So you're basically here by yourself then during the tour?
I am by myself. I'm a one-woman band. One woman artist band. It's me.
And she does. She puts on an incredible show. So this is definitely a place that you need to come and visit during the tour. So let's talk a little bit about your work area here, since we're right here. And now will you have this so people can see what
this will probably just stay about like that. Maybe I'll take the dirty Kleenex and rags away, but this is what it is. And what I have is brushes that are accessible to me. I have my water, I have my paints, I have my painting, and this is the way it is, and this is how I work. This actually is a tilted drafting table. I've never tilted it.
I see that
because
you actually have this that's...
Well, I tilt the board because you need to, watercolor needs to be done on a slight angle, but if I tilted the entire table, I would have water spilling down my legs.
Well, it'd be harder too to have your brushes up there.
Everything would be sliding because of gravity. So I keep a flat table and then I tilt the board and everything is fine. When I'm finished, I prop it up. I have a couple mats on the counter to my right, and I just prop this up and take a look at it at a distance and start squinting and see if there's anything I have to do and adjust if I need to. Then I photograph the painting and I look at the little screen, and if I look at it, it's so compressed that I can see where I have to change values, or that's the dark and light. And then if it's all right, then I sign it and I'm done.
Yeah, I do that too. As I do photograph kind of as I go, but also the final, and that does help me do the more balancing. So if I figure out,
yes,
I need a little bit more here,
yes,
or maybe even I didn't get the sun quite right over in this section.
Yes.
Now, is that something though with watercolor that you can actually go back and alter?
You know, it's such a misnomer that watercolor is so difficult and it's not correctable. It is correctable. They just haven't had the right teacher.
See, and the reason I've never done watercolor because I think it's unforgiving.
No,
okay.
It's very forgiving.
I know you keep
You'd be
telling me that.
surprised. You'd be surprised.
Well,
so
that's why I like the pastels, because I feel like and other people think that pastels are unforgiving.
Yes.
So I guess to each its own.
Well, we can just pretend that it's really difficult.
Okay. It is really difficult to do what we do.
Oh my.
So when I came up, you were using this brush.
Yes.
And this is actually one of your preferred brushes.
Oh, I paint most of my paintings with a flat brush. This is a pure sable, and it's a 1-inch. I have several sizes. I have 3/4 here. I have 1/2 inch and 1/4. I have an assortment of, I have a lot of brushes, but primarily I use the 1-inch brush and then go into the rounds for detail work, because you know you can't do little tiny branches
so
with
give me an
this one.
example of a round.
Around this, the difference. Well, let me get a bigger brush. This is a flat brush. It's called flat because it is flat. This is the metal part called a ferrule, F-E-R-R-U-L-E. This is a ferrule, and this is round. So what happens when this gets wet is it points. This does not point, it just gets flat. So with this flat brush, I can do very thin lines like I just did here, and remove the paint to get to the white of the paper. This one will point, and so with this one I can do trunks and branches and the more detailed stuff. When watercolor starts, I always use a big brush because you don't want any detail until the end.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense, because otherwise you'd be working all around it, and then you don't.
Oh, you can't. Yes. Yeah, you can't do.
Makes sense.
Yes.
So let's talk about how you mix your paints, and I don't know which camera would be able to catch them, but she's got.
Well, let me show you. I just happen to have. I have 2 palettes because I teach 2 classes a week for Placer Adult School, and if I have to work on a painting, then I take the paints that are left from that painting in the palette and into the studio so I can work with the same colors. So basically, these are identical palettes. Paints are squeezed in. This is a lid so that it's easy for transport and carrying, goes in the car and all that. It's a very hard plastic, which is excellent. So these are the colors I used on another painting. And I will.
So what's going on when I see all this going on here? Is this when you're mixing and blending?
This is I'm mixing and blending, and if I wanted to make a neutral, I would mix it all together. Because watercolor is resoluble. You never waste it.
Well, that's what watercolor, we always think this starts out dry and then you add water to it.
Yes.
Obviously. And now on this board, it's pretty wet, all of these.
Because I've been painting.
Yes. So how long does it take to dry out?
As long as the evaporation goes. You know, I mean, if it's a hot day, it'll dry quickly. If it's a cool day, it'll just stay wetter longer. Which sometimes is an advantage because you can manipulate the paint a little longer. If you're painting in 100-degree weather, everything is hot. The paper is hot. The paint gets fried on the paper. I mean, it's difficult to work with that. So
now that reminds me, I'm sorry I'm going to interrupt you, but you had mentioned, don't you sometimes put water on the paper first
Yes, and I did for this because I wanted everything to blend and be soft and look water-like. So this had to be wet. This is perfectly dry paper. And you don't have to wet the paper every time you begin. It depends on what you're doing. For instance, if I'm going to have granite rocks up here, let's see what I can, maybe I should use this palette because I have a whole lot of mess in this one. It won't disturb going back to. You see, this is making rainbows out of leftovers, and so it's a wonderful thing because you never throw anything away. I never clean my palette unless I have. If I had to do a blue sky, I would clean the palette so I could mix some blue, because this would be kind of messy. But if I mix a light color, which is adding water, we never use white in watercolor. Take off a little bit of the water on the brush, then I can drag the brush on this perfectly dry paper. This one is still damp, so I don't want to touch that. But over here, I can drag this, and it catches the top surface of the paper because it's like hills and valleys. If you took a cross section of the paper, so you can see it isn't filling in. Right. Because it's dry, and I can go darker, and so what I'm establishing here is some texture for granite. So you don't always have to wet the paper before you begin.
I see that. And it also surprising to me because there's not a lot of water in your brush as you're going about doing this.
No, if I had a lot of water, I would have this effect.
Have that. See, I always think of in terms of watercolors, you're using lots of water, and that's maybe why I think it'd be hard to control.
Well, keep thinking that, because if we have more people thinking it's harder, then they'll come and say, wow, look at this.
You don't want me watercoloring.
Okay, never mind. Erase that, okay?
All right. All
right, well, so what I'm going to do is mix up some greens so that I don't have to stop and mix and then put it on and then stop and mix some more. I'm going to have a whole palette of greens. So what I am mixing is quinacridone burnt orange, which is a beautiful color, in with phthalo blue, and it makes a nice rich dark green.
So you're doing all of this ahead of the time?
I'm doing it ahead of time to save the time, because if you want the paint to wet blend on the paper and not dry, you have to have something to work with. So if I have light green, dark green, middle greens, whatever greens I need, I just have to grab and go. That's it.
Now, what is this color that you have right in here? Because that's a gorgeous color.
Yeah, it's kind of a reddish brown. It's quinacridone burnt orange, and it's a synthetic. It's transparent. It's somewhat staining, but not really. But it makes wonderful colors.
And that goes in your trees.
That's the mixture.
I can see it, yeah.
It's the mixture.
Now, when you say a synthetic, what do you mean by that?
That means it doesn't come from the plant or leaves or nuts or berries or roots. It's made in a lab.
Man-made.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So I think that's the difference between organic and inorganic.
So once you go through this process, and you obviously still have to keep it wet, so as when you move over to your paper.
What I'm going to do is put some trees in through here at the other side of the river bank. So I have a lot of dark on here already. Oh, I guess I don't. I have a lighter one. So now I just have to. All right. What I'm going to do is mix up a little more on the yellow, and I have some leftovers in here that are more orangey, and so I can use that in my mixtures for the green as well. So now I have a pile of color, and I'm just going to start adding it. Here's some light. This will be wet into wet. This is dark green above it and around it.
Now, wet into wet.
That means wet paint into wet paint.
Okay.
And it works. It's just another technique of painting with watercolor. You can paint wet on dry, would be wet on dry paper. Wet on wet could be also on wet paper, but it in this case it isn't. I am wet blending, letting the watercolor just blend by itself. This is why I love this brush. You can see
It does so many different things.
it does. You just have to know how to use it. That's all it is. And I'll do the same thing on this side. I'm going to just do some dark stuff and kind of shield some bushes and trees
Now you
behind
do
the
this
red.
very quickly. And
Yes.
I guess we have to explain is that you have years of experience.
Yes, I do.
And so when people actually are starting out in watercoloring, it's not this easy.
I don't have to think as much as
Yes.
beginners do. Beginners really have to think. They have to think about all the stuff that I don't have to, like what do I mix, how do I get there, how do I apply it, what brush do I use. All that. It's rote for me, which I think is wonderful.
Oh, well, I love
Well, it should be after decades of painting, you know.
Well, like now that you've introduced into the more the yellows as you're getting down into the lower parts of the trees.
Yeah. And when this dries, I don't know that I can do it now, but if I take a lighter green, I can just go right up to it, and this will create bushes beneath. It's a little runny. It should have been a little more dry, but that's okay.
Now, what I'm fascinated about too is the way, because so you have made these trees that come up here, and obviously there's going to be something coming behind them.
Yeah. Normally I don't do that, but I am doing it now for you because you can
Okay.
see how it will work.
So normally you would do the background.
I do. It's watercolor is light to dark,
Okay.
back to front,
Okay.
usually. I mean, there's no law that says you have to do that. But the rule of thumb is you have to paint however it'll work for the painting. It doesn't matter how you get there, just get there. So that's what it is. So now I can go in a little bit darker in through here and create some other trees and bushes.
I think you have to be really disciplined too, because I will tell you is that if I were doing something like this, I think it would be hard to stay in the trees and not just jump right away into the granite that you're going to be doing.
Well, you know, theoretically, every painting should be done all of it all at once. Don't get stuck on one thing until it's absolutely perfect and then drop it and do the next thing. So this is not quite dry, but if I wanted some distant trees here, I've got some blue mixed. I know it's odd, but if I start putting blue trees in here, they will immediately go into the distance. And if this is all dry, I can go on top of that, and it really doesn't disturb too much all the painting that's done in front. With this area, it's awfully wet and juicy, so I'm not going to do any of that in here, but it'll be okay. Now let's just say that I don't like what I have. I'm getting watermarks here because I'm walking, talking, and doing too much, but I have some Kleenex here, and I can blot there, I can blot here, and get rid of some paint and go over it later. So this is the misnomer that you can't fix it. Yes, you can. So when this dries, then I can go over it. But if I want to do granite, there are a couple ways to do granite. One is dry brush over here, and this is my second palette for another batch of pre-mixed colors. So I can either do dry brush here, which is just dragging the brush over the dry paper and catching the top surface of the paper, or I can go juicy and wet and have a very light value, which means a light gray or light on the gray scale, and paint the granite this way, add some paint to it, and I can go a little bit darker and a little darker and a little darker, and then before it dries, I'll take a piece of a credit card and scrape this wet mess so it'll look kind of like that. In the meantime, let me finish this, and then I will wet the other part too. Because I'm going to have some tall trees between the green and the granite here, I'm going to wet this area and let the green just bleed out if it needs to, just go someplace. So I'm going to keep my eye on that because I don't want to lose this. And with the same paint over on this side, I'm just going to lightly put a little bit of a film of paint on top. And you get the idea that it's there but not there. I'll be adding some trees again on top. And in the crevices of the rock I will do that. So this, I'm just going lightly into the painted area, and it doesn't really do any damage at all. So that's it, but wait. Here is the trick. I wrote a book about watercolor, and one of the things that
Wait a minute.
Here it is, watercolor. It's only a piece of paper. I have some helpful hints, a lot of helpful hints in there, and one of them is to learn when it taint. When it taint wet and it taint dry, then you can scrape it and get this wonderful texture similar to what I had here. So what I'm looking for now here is the shine. So it's a little bit shiny here, but it isn't shiny there, so it taint shiny, taint dry, too wet, but I can start scraping. So when I scrape, I'm going to be scarring the paper. This was just paint on top. There's no scar to it. This, I'm going to be scarring the paper. So I want to do this. And with that, I'm going to be creating the different rock shapes. I have to hold it down because this is sound of watercolor. So you see the smashing. I don't know that you can see, but I'm smashing the top surface of the paper down. These little spots are kind of like the dry brush over here.
I love this process.
It's great fun, and people who have never seen it say, "How did you do that?" I said, "Well, I just scraped it off." What? Yeah. All right, so this is drying a little bit, so it's not a problem. I take clean water and just wet it a little bit more here and scrape right now.
And this brings a roughness to it.
It makes it look very much like rock and granite. I don't want to scrape too much here because when I put trees on top of that, it will go into the scars, so and the scars will show. But you know, at a distance, you're not going to see this in the distance anyway, but that's going to look pretty darn good.
Yeah, it does.
So with this, I can do the same thing. So it's a little bit on the wet side, but up here I can darken it with leftover paint. Don't ask what it is, it's just palette. And now we have to either breathe hard or wait, because I have to wait till it taint.
Doody doody
Doody doody.
doody doody doo 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 doo.
It's still wet, so I'll show you what happens when it's wet. I mean, it's only a piece of paper. What will happen is I'm going to scrape the paint, and this paint is just going to be pushed along all that nice juicy wet surface, and I'm just going to have a glob of paint left on the bottom. So it won't be this kind of removing paint, but it'll move it. It may also go back in the grooves, but what I'm doing here is distressing it. I'm creating scars. And this too will work out just fine. Ledges and all that stuff. So don't want to go down here where the trees are. We'll wipe off what I don't want. And it's coming. It's coming.
Well, let's talk about some of your completed, if we can. Can we move away from?
Oh, absolutely.
Talk about
Dry, dry.
Okay, so we are coming up with the North Auburn studio tour, and one of the things that's a great advantage about coming to your studio is because you have so many absolutely incredible pieces.
Well, I don't know about incredible, but I have so many pieces because I paint a lot during the year. Because I teach, I do a demonstration in every class. I finish every demonstration, or try to. So I am, besides commissions and my own paintings that I want to do, and all the class demonstrations. I paint between 80 and 100 paintings a year.
I know, that's amazing.
So, I know, and the only way people can see what I do is to come to the studio, because it's impossible, it's totally impossible to mat and frame and exhibit that many paintings. Where am I going to put them, number one, after they're framed? And it's not that they're bad, that they're in a drawer. So what I have here are some framed pieces. I switch these out periodically, not very often. But I have several hundred in the drawer, and they're all in categories. And I during the studio tour, I invite the people to come in and go through my drawers, because there's a whole lot of stuff in there that they would probably like. I have a pile of matted paintings. I have, the drawers are unmatted. They're raw. They need to be framed, and you can see what they look like framed. And whenever they're framed, it's like the dressing on a salad. It's all done, and it's beautiful.
Now it looks like with a lot of your matting, you do like almost a double color. So
sometimes I do. I have a matting section at the other end of the studio, and there's a box that stores mats and paintings underneath also, but the top is a mat cutter, and it's a professional mat cutter. So I have been cutting mats for decades. Wow. In fact, after 33 years or so, I had to buy a new mat cutter because I wore it out.
I may
and that's amazing.
You show me how to do that.
Yes. In fact, don't tell anybody, but I have a mat cutter that you can use. It's brand new, and it was kind of given to me to share with students. So if you want to borrow it, I'll let you borrow it.
Well, I think you need to show me how to use it first.
Yes, well, I can do that too. But I have a lot of these paintings are double matted, which means there are two different color mats. If I can't find the proper color for a painting, I will paint a mat and then cut out the hole, and I will have a 1/4 inch, just as on this pot of daisies. Otherwise, this is an ambitious mat. It's one piece of paper for the painting and 3 openings in one mat.
I know, I really like that, and because a lot of people are really doing that, where they have one painting that has been divided. Even in the oils and acrylics, they can see a lot of that.
It would be, I think, if it were in 3 different frames, it would be a triptych. This is just one painting. It's not just one painting, it's a painting with 3 openings. And I cut the openings.
Let's take some time and we can go around and talk about some of the paintings.
Sure. And you can see my drawers.
Yes.
Sorry.
So Sonja, I'd love it if you could show us around just your studio and show us where we obviously are at your work area. And how you have everything else set up here.
Well, I have a lot of workstations here. This is the painting station. I have a framing matting station on the opposite side, and I have display areas of different kinds in the studio. So what I have in the corner are the matted paintings here, the matted paintings here. On the other side, I have unmatted paintings in sleeves. I have a card rack that is done from all the photographs I've taken of my paintings. Not all the photographs. I still have more. And surrounding are framed pieces that I have on the countertops and hanging on my hanging system from the ceiling. So it shows a variety of work that I do, whether it's animals or flowers or water or whatever it is.
Now for the studio tour, you were saying that you kind of push things back a little bit and you have others of your work that is actually hanging up.
Well, what I'm going to do is cover up all my clutter. And in front of the clutter, I'll have some framed paintings for people to enjoy and look at.
Now, one of the things I absolutely love that is available to people to see are your drawers.
Oh, my drawers, yes.
Can you show me your drawers?
Please, if you go on the other side,
all right, I will.
We will open up a drawer. Not that they're all that heavy, but these are flat file drawers with categories. And this is one, this category is ocean and seasons. And so I thought maybe you'd like to see. This is the finished pieces go in here. As I said, I can't mat and frame everything, so they have to go somewhere. So this is a tugboat from Great Britain. This painting is of the coast, California coast, and what this is it shows how I do some of the texture in my paintings, which is scraping wet paint while it's on the paper.
And you use a credit card to do that.
And I'd use a piece of a credit card, not a whole credit card, just a piece.
So when people are finished with their credit cards, then they can kind of do this with
Oh, absolutely. I don't throw credit cards away, just cut them up and save them.
So, and you're going to be demonstrating this technique a little bit later in our show.
Yes, I hope so. And then we have other paintings to take a look at. So we have flowers beneath here, and I have a batch that is horizontal and a batch that's vertical. So here's the difference.
Oh, these are just beautiful.
And I have soft flowers too. This was a demonstration at Auburn Old Town Gallery. That was a little bouquet.
Really, I love your flowers.
Thank you.
These are gorgeous.
So that's a little, I do a little of everything. It seemed like a long time ago, I read an article about a national artist who was really in a pickle because she was known for this kind of art, and she was making such good money with this kind of art that her publishers didn't want her to change this kind of art. Mm-hmm. I didn't want that ever to happen, not that I'm going to have a publisher. So this is why I have branched out to a lot of different categories.
Is this one the next?
This one is interesting because it has people and still lives. So I have tomatoes and pears and a fisherman in Russian River.
This is a great storage idea too. I love this.
Yes, they're very, very handy.
And then what's nice too about the watercolor, because it dries and it can be stored like this, it doesn't have to be put in any type of sleeve.
No. Then nothing goes wrong. I mean, it would be difficult if I had a flood, because this is resoluble paint and it's paper. Mm-hmm. But no, it's not a problem at all. And each of these drawers is filled with paintings. So people coming into the studio can certainly open up the drawers if they want to see something different, a specific category. They just go into the categories. I have the food section and the animal section, and a little of everything.
So they can kind of go through and they can select and find something there.
Yes, and these actually are priced well because they're not matted or framed.
Which always adds the expense of it.
That's right. Well, they can do the framing to suit their own home and needs, mm-hmm. and so on.
I think it's a brilliant idea.
Well, I had to do something with them. I paint so many every year.
I keep putting mine in matting and framing them, and I'm running out of wall space.
Well, this is it. I mean, if I do 90 paintings a year, where am I going to? There aren't enough walls in here.
Well, one of the things that I also want to mention is that the North Auburn artists have several preview shows that are showing around town. So if you want to see a collection of art that also includes some of Sonja's watercolor, there is a show that is right now at Tango Yogurt, Frozen Yogurt. We will also be going into Baked and Brewed in a few weeks, and again it will be an assortment of the various artwork of the people who are participating in the tour. And then we will have a third show leading up to the tour, which is at the Beecher Room at the Auburn Library. And again, it is going to be an assortment of the various artwork by the various artists. And Sonja, you're participating in all three.
I am, but I think we need to tell people that Tango Yogurt and Baked and Brewed are close to each other in downtown Auburn, and the library is on Nevada Street, and it's a special room where they have programs and conferences, and so we are decorating that. And everyone, and all these shows are free unless you want to go and buy some baked or brewed stuff, coffee.
We will also yogurt. We will also have some of our brochures there. So if you aren't able to find the brochures in other places around town, you can certainly go to one of the preview shows and pick them up there. So again, hope to see you around at the tour. And Sonja, this is absolutely gorgeous, and I know that you're not going to be able to complete it today, but it'll probably be finished by the time that the tour comes around.
Oh, absolutely. All people have to do is ask where is the painting that was in the video, and I will be happy to show it to them. Maybe I'll even have it on display on an easel, so that'll be easier.
And I think that's absolutely fabulous, so they can see how it's done and then they can see the finished work.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about the tour and how they can get in contact with you and where they can find you and the brochures.
Oh, well, the brochure is quite easy to follow. This is a really nice design. Each one of us has a piece that is photographed in there. Mine happens to be on the lower right. It's vermilion flycatcher, and that's why the bird has a nice red head. Inside it's a map, and if you find my painting here, here's the flycatcher. I have a letter next to my name which is B, and here's the map, and the corresponding B is on the map. So this is how you find me, and there are different directions to go to in order to find me, and all of us are on this map, and it's a nice close proximity. People can do this in a day. If you want to linger a little and visit a little more, you can go back, or you can take 2 days for the tour, Saturday and Sunday of Mother's Day weekend.
I think there's about 10 stops on the tour.
I haven't counted.
I
know I'm one of them.
Yes, so we have some of the places we do have multiple artists that are going to be participating. We have a couple of guest artists, which are the Lords, and they're going to be at Diane Tharp's. So you will see some combination of people at some of them. But for most part, you will be able to go into everyone's studio and see, like this one that we have seen today, and get a little taste of what the artists in our community can share with you.
LouCinda, we're also going to be distributing these to different places, the library, the City Hall, Auburn Old Town Gallery, all kinds of businesses in and around the area. So anybody wanting a map, all they have to do is look at and find the little strips of pieces that we have in here, or they can go online to our website. It's www.northauburnartist.com and pick up the map. They might even see the video there.
This is true, because on our website, each one of the videos that are being produced by Auburn Community Television are available for you to see. And also I want to point out that with each one of these brochures that you pick up, the map is handy. It's something you can just put in your purse and you'll be able to go around to each one of the tours. So we certainly hope that you will join us at the tour on the Mother's Day weekend. And if they want to make an appointment to come and see your studio at another time, how would they go about doing that?
All my contact information is on the brochure, and if you don't pick up the brochure, go online again, and I'm there. Just call me, and if I'm home and you're ready, and you can come and poke around.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to the Community TV too, because without them, we wouldn't have this. Thank you all.
Very much.